Hey everyone. When you make a game, if you're making it by yourself on your own time, it's very important to discover what your strengths are and possibly more importantly what your weaknesses are. And once you know those things, you can design a game around them. For me, I love doing the programming. I like coming up with algorithms and the overall world and game design, deciding how pieces fit together and how one thing affects another. The one thing I'm not good at is the artwork, but I'm doing this by myself, so I have to do the artwork. And I tried a bunch of different things. The first thing I did was I went to the asset store and looked for a bunch of spaceships, and you'll find them. They're out there, but they don't have the cohesiveness of design. Like you go through these and you will find a lot of spaceships and even some packages that let you build spaceships modularly, and that's cool, but it looks like all these assets are taken from different games because they are. So I really wanted to be able to make my own, and I tried doing them in 3D because I do have some experience with 3D graphics, and it just didn't work out good. And the amount of time it took to design one ship is just horrible. So I settled on vector graphics. And I don't claim to be the best vector artist, but it was something I wanted to try, and I think it turned out pretty good. Now keep in mind, I don't know if these are going to be the final ships. I really started doing these vector ships just as placeholder art, but I think with a bit more detail they could become final product material. So I learned a lot in making some of these ships, and I don't claim they're anything spectacular, but if you see, I have split them into these four design companies. I figure in my world there's going to be four companies that produce ships, and I wanted them all to have some kind of cohesiveness. So I just picked a general shape that each company is going to design towards. So the Imperial Designs pick this inverted T shape. Shadow Bright, I'm basically starting out with a circle and then chiseling away at it to create the silhouette. And Stellar Travel, this is one I just made an hour ago. I was just messing around with some triangular shapes, and this kind of came out the other end. And so I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. They'll have triangular shaped ships. And I haven't thought about Hyperdrift yet, but I want to have four companies, and they're each going to have four ships, which will make 16 ships, which I think is a pretty good variety. And I think it'll be cool to see a ship and recognize what kind of company made it. And possibly, I'm not sure, but maybe each of these companies are going to have specialization. So if you see maybe Stellar Travel, they're really fast ships, or Shadow Bright, they're really defensive ships. I don't know. But that's something I'll think about later. Um, so yeah, when I started making these ships, I started with this one up in the top left corner here. I just made some shapes and blocked out this frame, and I really just mess around. I mean, this is like the digital equivalent of a whiteboard. If you don't like what you did, you just erase it and start again. So my process ended up being creating the outer shape and then shading it in some way with this gradient and then decorating it. And the decorations here include these air vents and these kind of blue glowy window orb things. So then I took all those properties and then I just kind of started over, made a new shape, added similar shading, similar decoration, and I came out with this, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then I kept going, and then I kept going, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, that's the one I picked for the player ship, but I think the player ship's going to be random, just to make things interesting. I'm not sure if the ship it randomly picks will really have an influence on the game, but it'll just have a nice little visual change every time. So, and with these guys, it's kind of obvious. I picked slightly different shading and a different base shape to block my guy out at, and I have these bigger, slightly darker vents, and So then I just repeated the process with this guy, and there's going to be a couple more, but yeah. And I just decided that in this world, propulsion engines are purple, because I like rules. And now that I mention that, I don't like these propulsion engines. They just kind of look dorky sticking out of the back there. I will delete that. Just give me a sec. Whoops. You basically can't make mistakes when you do something like this because, well, you have Control Z. Okay. Uh-huh. Let's see if that looks better. Kind of. Hmm. Yeah, that's way better. Cool. And it's that easy. Oh, and I also decided that stellar travel ships, they vent out of circular tubes instead of slots, just because any random rules you can come up with and stick to are going to make things look more cohesive and interesting. And when the player can recognize that two ships were manufactured by the same player or same manufacturer, suddenly it's just that much more of a real environment, even though the ships all look kind of cartoony and the gameplay is going to be a bit ridiculous. Um, so another part of the visual design is there's going to be four factions in the game. There's going to be traders. That's with a D. These people trade things. And there's going to be outlaws, law enforcement, and then the player. I consider the player to kind of be his own faction, but he can join the other factions. So you can see here that the player is blue, but the player is actually going to be green. I don't know why I made him blue here. I don't know, that was a while ago. And I've broken down these ships into various components. So if I find the sprites here, here's ship 1. You can see there's the body. That's just the base shape. Then there is the color and the glow and the thrusters. And this allows me to take the body and simply add a tint to it to change the color of it. So I can have all the traders be yellow-ish, outlaws be red, and police be blue, and I think the player is going to be green. And that is going to allow the player to immediately identify hostiles at any moment, which is very good because the game is very short and fast-paced. And I think this style of quick and dirty design benefits me because I can actually do it. If I insisted on doing this in 3D or making them extremely high fidelity graphics, I would just get to this point and basically quit because I'm not capable of it. So you got to play towards your strengths and design around your weaknesses. That is the moral of the story. I'll see you next time.